Table saws, they are often the absolute heartbeat of a busy site, right? They're essential, they're powerful, and honestly, they are completely unforgiving. Welcome to this explainer on the updated table saw standard operating procedure, where we're going to walk through the mandatory safety standards expected of every single operator. Safe operation actually starts before you even step foot in the workshop, so let's get focused.
But before we even touch the machinery, you've got to ask yourself a really critical question. Are you prepared to take 5 before every cut? You know, when you're cutting hundreds of boards a week, it is incredibly easy to just fall into a state of autopilot. Taking 5 means actively breaking out of that autopilot. It means taking a deliberate breath, grounding yourself in the moment, and really prioritizing personal accountability and hazard awareness. Because let's be real, procedures and manuals only work if you are mentally present enough to follow them.
Okay, so here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to run through this logically. Overview and key hazards, required PPE, pre-start checks, safe operation and hard rules, the guard removal exception, and finally, shutdown and final checks.
All right, Section 1. Overview and key hazards. Let's get a handle on what we're actually dealing with. Look, we have these mandatory standards for a reason. Improper use of a table saw has devastating, life-altering consequences. There are 4 main hazards you got to respect here. First, the rotating blade itself, which obviously can cause catastrophic injury. Second is the kickback risk. This happens when a setup error makes the saw bind, and it violently throws heavy timber right back at you at literal highway speeds. Third, flying debris and sawdust, which will totally wreck your eyes and lungs. And fourth, those hidden hazards, permanent hearing damage, and the absolutely terrifying risk of your loose clothing getting entangled in the moving parts.
And this right here, this is why we can never get complacent. The blade doesn't slow down, it doesn't hesitate, and it certainly does not forgive. A single split-second lapse in focus is all it takes. Contact will cause severe lacerations or complete amputations faster than your brain can even register the pain. Familiarity breeds complacency, guys, and you can never, ever get too comfortable around this tool.
Moving on to Section 2. Required PPE and preparation. Let's talk about gearing up. Before you even think about hitting that power switch, you've got to get your gear right. We're talking safety glasses to deflect high-speed splinters, hearing protection for the sustained noise, safety boots, and a dust mask. But hey, it's not just about what you put on, it's about what you tuck in. You must ensure your clothes are close-fitting and long hair is securely tied back. Why is a baggy shirt so dangerous? Because if a loose sleeve catches just one tooth on that spinning blade, it'll pull your whole arm into the cutting path instantly. You literally cannot pull away fast enough.
Here's the thing to remember about your personal protective equipment, though. It is absolutely your last line of defense. It's just one layer of protection that's meant to work alongside the saw's engineering controls and your own skill, never instead of them. You can wear all the safety gear in the world, but it won't save you from a poorly executed cut.
Section 3. Pre-start equipment checks. This is what you absolutely must do before the power goes on.
It's all about building a solid professional routine. Run through these 4 checks every single time you step up to the machine. 1. Inspect the power cord, plug, and current test tags for electrical safety. 2. Check the blade for worn or damaged teeth, and make sure that blade guard moves freely. 3. Verify the riving knife is perfectly tight and aligned. Seriously, do not skip this one. It's your primary defense against a lethal kickback. And 4. Clear your work table, check your fence alignment, and make sure your dust extraction and lighting are good to go. You have to own your workspace.
All right, Section 4. Safe operation and hard rules. Let's set some strict boundaries for the cut itself.
Proper setup is everything. Get that saw on a solid level surface with locked supports. Adjust the blade height so it's just slightly above the material you're cutting. Never expose more of that blade than you absolutely have to. And here is your golden rule. Keep your hands at least 150 millimeters away from the blade at all times. Doing a narrow cut, you must use a push stick. Feed the material nice and steady once the saw is up to full speed, and always make sure long stock is properly supported on the outfeed.
You know the drill. Always use the fence for rip cuts and the miter gauge for cross cuts. Freehand cutting isn't just a bad idea. It's practically begging for a severe kickback injury. If a piece of timber twists even slightly off axis during a freehand cut, the blade's going to catch it and launch it. Also, never reach over or behind a running blade to catch a piece of wood. Untrained folks should never operate the saw, and you must never, ever walk away and leave a running saw unattended. Okay, Section 5. The guard removal exception. We're talking highly controlled scenarios here.
Normally, removing the blade guard is strictly prohibited, but there is one very specific exception in the SOP.
You can only do it when you're ripping timber over 90 millimeters that physically clashes with the guard. This isn't about convenience, guys. It's about a physical impossibility. And because of the extreme danger, you can't just make this call yourself. It requires formal site supervisor approval and a highly trained, competent operator behind the wheel.
When that guard comes off, your margin for error drops to absolute zero. Alternative controls like push sticks, push blocks, and incredibly strict hand positioning become 100% mandatory. It's so tempting to leave the guard off for just one more quick cut because you're rushing, but there is zero wiggle room here. Once the task is done, that guard must be verified and refitted immediately before any other work happens. And finally, Section 6, Shutdown and Final Checks.
Shutting down properly is honestly just as important as your pre-start checks because you're protecting the next person who steps up to that machine. Turn off the saw and physically stand there until the blade comes to a complete dead stop. Disconnect the power so it can't accidentally start while you're away. Then, clean up. Get all the sawdust, debris, and offcuts out of there. A messy saw isn't just sloppy. A pile of fine sawdust is a huge fire hazard, and scattered offcuts are a massive slip hazard right next to a spinning blade. Finish with a quick visual check and store your accessories.
Take a look at this quote. Consistent use of this SOP is what prevents life-altering injuries. Work safe every time. Safety isn't just checking boxes on a form. It's a shared responsibility across the whole site. Consistent, unwavering adherence to these rules is quite literally the only way we make sure everyone goes home with all their fingers, their eyesight, and their hearing perfectly intact.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I'm going to leave you with a crucial question to carry back into the workshop. Will you take 5 before your next cut? Will you take that brief pause to assess the hazards, double-check your controls, and empower yourself and your crew to challenge unsafe behavior before every single cut? Remember, the standard you walk past is the standard you accept. Thanks for joining me. Work safe out there.